In many boarding schools across Africa, there is one tale that never dies. A legend that refuses to fade, whispered from one generation of students to the next. They call her Madame Koi Koi. It is said that when night falls and all the dormitory lights go dark, students hear the clicking of high heels echoing down the hallways. Koi, koi, koi. The steps are slow, steady, and always stop right in front of a dorm room door. No one dares to open it because they know those who meet her gaze never return the same. She is often described as a beautiful woman in a bright red dress, her lips painted with thick lipstick, her face half hidden in shadow. But the most terrifying part is her eyes, cold, empty, staring directly into the soul of anyone foolish enough to look. The story dates back decades. Madame Koi Koi was said to be a teacher known for her cruelty. She was elegant, always walking in sharp heels, but she despised her students. Even the smallest mistakes were punished harshly, and some whispered that a student once died because of her beatings. One night, on her way home, she suffered a mysterious accident. Her body was never fully recovered. Only a bloodied high heel was found. From that night onward, her footsteps never left the school. Students in many schools laughed off the tale as superstition. But there was one old boarding school on the outskirts of Lagos where the legend lived vividly. The hallways were long and dark, the paint peeling off the walls, and the sound of crickets blended with the groaning of wooden beams. Lights often flickered or went out, leaving shadows that seemed to move on their own. New students dismissed it as coincidence, until they heard the high-heeled steps when no one was walking. Ayo, a new student, arrived at the school filled with nerves. He tried to ignore the ghost stories told by seniors, but his first night in the dormitory became unforgettable. When all the others had fallen asleep, Ayo awoke to the sound of footsteps. Koi, koi, koi. He froze, glanced at the wall clock. It was exactly 2 a.m. The steps grew louder, closer, until they stopped outside his door. Silence. Then a whisper seeped through the crack. "I see you." Sweat poured down his forehead. He pulled the blanket over his head, praying for silence. Moments later, the steps receded, fading into the darkness of the corridor. The next day, Ayo told his roommates what he had heard, but the seniors only gave him cold stares. "That was a warning," they said. "Never try to trace the footsteps. Never open the door." One senior, Funmi, added grimly, "Years ago, a student opened his door. He vanished overnight. We found him lying unconscious on the school field the next morning, pale, lips bleeding, muttering only 2 words, 'Red dress, red dress.' He never returned to school." Madame Koi Koi seemed to haunt every corner. Some saw her combing her long hair in the bathroom mirrors. Others spotted her in classroom windows after sunset. Many dreamed of her, waking up screaming in the night. The school had even sealed off one of the old dormitory blocks, nailing the doors and covering the windows with planks. Rumor said it was the epicenter of her presence. Yet, even with the building locked away, the sound of koi, koi, koi still echoed from within. During exams, students often studied late into the night. One evening, Ayo and his classmates were in a classroom when suddenly the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness. Then came the sound of footsteps, not from the corridor, but inside the classroom. Koi, koi, koi. Everyone froze. Ayo turned on his phone flashlight. The beam swept across the room, revealing a figure in a red dress at the back corner, her hair veiling her face, her eyes glowing crimson. Screams erupted. The students rushed to the door, but it was locked from the outside. The footsteps drew nearer. Koi, koi, koi. Ayo shone his light on her face. She slowly lifted her head, pale skin, red lips twisted into a grin, blood dripping from her temple. "You opened my eyes," she hissed. The window shattered suddenly, and students scrambled out through the glass. When they looked back, the figure was gone, leaving behind only the metallic stench of blood. The incident spread like wildfire, yet the school called it mass hysteria. But Ayo, restless, broke into the school archives. There, he discovered files on a teacher named Madame Ogechi, cruel, hated, and supposedly killed in an accident decades ago. But witness notes hinted at something darker. Students may have attacked her, and her body was never fully found. Only her shoe remained. Ayo pieced it together. Madame Ogechi and Madame Koi Koi were the same. One night, Ayo dreamed of the corridor again. The steps came closer. Madame Koi Koi appeared, eyes blazing with rage. "I am searching for the ones who stopped my breath." He woke screaming. Beneath his bed were fresh, high-heeled footprints, wet as though someone had just walked through. From that night, the haunting grew relentless. Every night, the sound stopped outside Ayo's door. One night, he peeked out, the corridor bathed in moonlight, the red dress gliding slowly toward him, her glowing eyes locked on his door. He backed away, only to hear the footsteps inside his room. Soon after, a boy named Shinedu vanished on his way to the toilet. He was found trembling on the roof, muttering, "She told me to follow. She told me to follow." He was taken home, but never returned to school, his mind shattered. Certain the truth lay within the sealed dormitory, Ayo and Funmi sneaked inside. Dust choked the air, and the stench of rot lingered. Scratches marred the walls. In one room stood a tall, cracked mirror. In its reflection, Funmi screamed. Behind Ayo, a woman in red stood smiling. Ayo spun around. The room was empty. The mirror fractured with a screen-like crack. That night, an old watchman caught them sneaking out. Instead of scolding, he sighed. "This place is cursed." He confessed the truth. Students once beat Madame Ogechi nearly to death, dragged her to the old dormitory, and hid her body under the floorboards. They buried her in haste, but one red shoe remained above the soil. Since then, her spirit had walked the halls. Ayo dreamt again, this time seeing her full death. She whispered, "They killed me. and you will witness the end." He awoke with soil clinging to his hands, as if he had dug a grave. A girl named Ifeoma vanished one night. Her body was found outside the abandoned dorm, her eyes lifeless. Next to her lay a blood-stained red heel. Ayo, Funmi, and a few others decided to perform a ritual, prayers and candles in the room where she was buried. But once inside, the door locked and the footsteps returned, louder, faster. Gui, gui, gui. One by one, the candles extinguished. In the pitch black, Madame Koi Koi appeared, her red dress drenched in blood, half her face a skull, her eyes burned. "I cannot leave until the guilty pay." The floor split open, revealing skeletal remains bound in rotting cloth, her corpse. She screamed, a piercing cry that made them collapse in agony. Trembling, Ao stood tall. "I know you suffered, but harming the innocent won't set you free." For a moment, the steps ceased. Sadness flickered in her crimson eyes. Then, with one final scream, she dissolved into the shadows, leaving behind only blood and dust. From that night, the footsteps ceased. The old dorm was demolished, and Madame Ogechi's bones were properly buried. Yet Ayo knows. Sometimes, in dreams, he still sees the red dress at the end of the corridor. And sometimes, when the night is too quiet, he hears it again. Koi, koi, koi. Not from the hole, from behind him.